All right, we're back a little bit later than I'd like to. I apologize, we just did a little bit of housekeeping. I moved everything from the other repository that I had to the Opalus repository to Centennial College. So this is the one for the boilerplate, and I've got the latest one up for Mail Pilot Build. So please clone these ones, or fork these ones if you want to, and I see that some people already have. The COMP397 Mail Pilot Build is the one I'm working with. Notice that I'm working with branch 0.1, right, 0.1. I'm going to work along this branch, right? The master branch right now is identical. There's no difference between master branch and 0.1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chug along with 0.1 until we get most of it built. With this version, and I'm just going to kind of load this up in my Visual Studio Code. By the way, had some conversations, interesting conversations, weird conversations with some people. Professor, I haven't handed in assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3. Do you think I can pass? Just saying, right? You know. By the way, it wasn't just one person; it was people that you know. What can we do? What can you do to make me pass? Right? I don't know what the answer to answer that. To make you pass, I can't make you pass. I give you everything, and then if you hand things in, I mark them. Right? I can give you consideration for what happened last half of the semester, give you more time. And what I've done is I've opened up kind of almost an amnesty of, can you hand it in? Hand it in. If you had handed in assignment 1, 2, 3, even if you hadn't had it in, I will accept it, even now. I will do it. I will do whatever I have to do to mark it. So if you haven't had a chance to hand it in, please hand it in. You know, because I want to fix it so that way there's, you know, I can give you as much consideration as I can. But I can't give you free marks for something you haven't handed in. So I'm going to leave it open for now, maybe for a couple weeks, just to kind of mash up anything we do from first half of the semester, I mean. And so that's what I was talking about in the class. I didn't have a chance to start that off. I'm working with a build. The one I've cloned is COMP397 Summer 2016 Mail Pilot Build. That's the one I'm working with today, Mail Pilot Build. So I'm going to open that up in Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to go to, again, code is a little broken since the last update. I'm going to go to File, Open, and we're going to open up this one, Mail Pilot Build, which gives me this. Okay, so this is the one that you should have the same as me. Okay, pretty much the only thing you're missing is package.json, but we're going to get rid of that in a second because I don't need it. I don't need a package.json right now. We haven't done anything with npm, so that one can go. I'll buy package.json, and then you won't have anything in here to do. All right, so I'm working with branch 0.1. So you need to make sure when you clone, you just don't clone the master, you also clone the branch. How do you do that? Did you figure it out?
Yeah, I figured out how to clone a particular branch.
How?
So you have to put git clone, then -b, then local name of your branch,
and then the remote name of the branch, or the remote.
Yeah.
The remote. Okay, so that's how you do it. So basically, you still clone. So you do the clone, the same kind of a clone command you do, git clone, and then -b, the local name for your branch, which would be 0.1, and then the actual address of the URI for the remote, right? For the fork remote, right? Yeah. Okay, and then you have my branch. Why am I doing a branch? Because what we do is we work within a branch, work. The original stays the same, and when we get to the point where we're ready to merge, we merge it in, right? So we don't make changes to the master. The master stays as is when we develop, and that way you don't hurt the master. Master is pristine. Master is holy, right? And then you just work on your branch. Worst case scenario, if you mess up, you still got the master. Especially if you're doing an experiment. That's how you do experiments, right? So working with this one, let's see what we've got so far. I think we have to review, because I know we spent a week, and unfortunately for this class, we don't break it up into two classes. There's only one 3-hour class, which is kind of weird, but it is what it is. So I'm going to run light-server, and that's the one I choose. You can also run, instead of light server, you can run the other one as well. You can run, instead of light server, you know, we can run HTTP server. There's other little servers you can run. You can also run WAMP if you really want to do that as well, or LAMP. The reason why you need a server is because some of these images will not show up without. Okay, just FYI. So this is what you should have right now. We've got a start scene, we've got a next scene, and we've got a restart. In a game over, we can restart the scene. So this is the workflow we have, right? We're going to come to our play scene. For now, we're going to leave the play scene alone. I'm sorry, the We're going to leave the original, the menu scene alone. All we're going to have is start for now, right? So let's not mess with the menu scene. And then we're going to start, when you click start, it's going to start the play scene, okay? We're going to get rid of the button. That's what we're planning to do today. So we're going to get rid of the button in the play scene. And once we get rid of the button, I'm going to add the background, okay? And we'll talk about the scrolling, how to add the scrolling background. And we'll add a new class called Ocean, the Ocean class as an object. And in the Ocean class, we'll start making the ocean scroll. And we'll talk about how to make that happen. So let's add some issues. And again, if you like, you could also help me out. But I'm going to go up on GitHub here. And again, is it tedious? Yeah, a little bit. But the thing is with this, with issues, we can start off. Notice we have 0 releases. We're going to make it. Hopefully, we'll have a release by the end. We're at 0.1. I'm looking at the 0.1. If I go to 0.1 here, it's exactly the same. There isn't any difference between 0.1 and master right now. It's exactly the same. And I'm going to go to issues. Right here we are. We're going to start issue tracking. And we're going to see what we can build. Okay. I don't know if I can complete the whole build today for version 0.1, but we'll try our best and we'll add to it or whatever. Right. Remember, with the build, think about this as a sprint. Okay. If you're doing agile methodology, right? Every time we do a version, right now I'm calling it version. Tomorrow, what I want you to think about is it's a sprint. How much can I get done in 3 hours? Reasonable. If I can't do it, don't include it, right? Because we can't do everything, right? So let's only think about the stuff I can do in 3 hours. So the stuff I can do just for today, right? That's your sprint. And who knows about Agile? Anyone not know about Agile? Agile methodology, if you don't know about it, it's, you know what we want to do? It's shorter iterations for project management. And what we do is we try and get out a viable product, minimum viable product, you know, with whatever cycle it is. For us, today is the only day we're working for the entire week. In reality, we probably have whole week to work on a 0.1 on a sprint, or maybe a few days. And then we could add additional issues that you want to get out for that particular sprint, all right? Once we do that iteration, we go to 0.2, or you might call it sprint of week, whatever. You can make it whatever, however descriptive you want. I'm just making it 0.1, 0.2, and so on, okay? So let's think about the issues. I'm just going to refresh, see if anyone has added any issues in, because we have to kind of think of what things I can do within 3 hours. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to add a new issue. My new issue, I need labels. Labels, if I don't put them in there, notice I don't have the feature label again, right? So I need to kind of talk about labels. I go back to issues. I can go labels, and these are all the labels I want. I have them in there. Let's go into new label, and I'm going to call this thing feature, right? The feature label, it's lowercase is the way we do it. And I'm going to add create label, right? So I'm trying to show you how to use GitHub for project management. You can also combine it with things like Trello, very popular project management software out there, and with webhooks, and to kind of, you know, combine what you do with Trello with GitHub. It's really neat. We're not going to do that right now. The other one is I want to decline. There's going to be some stuff that says declined, all right? And the reason why I'm saying declined is because sometimes you might have a feature request that comes up and I'll say declined. Just can't do it, right? For whatever reason. So I'm going to create that label, declined. All right, and there's others. You can think about bugs and different things and whatever. Some stuff we can't do it right now. We won't do it this iteration, whatever. But for now, this is it. Milestones, I'm going to create a new milestone to kind of, you know, against this one. Again, we haven't done 0.1, so this will be 0.1. So version, we'll say version 0.1. Okay, and you can add, you know, some kind of a description if you want. You can also set a due date. We're going to clear the due date, and we're going to click create milestone. Okay, so the milestone is just, you know, no due date, and we're going to use this one as a thing. We're going to, when we build our issues, right, and here's a new issue, I'm going to say the new feature that I want is feature. We're going to have scrolling. One thing I want to do is a scrolling ocean background. For sure, we want that to be a feature that we want, right? Now, you can break these out. Just, you know, we're very simple. We've been very simple here. And by the way, you can always modify the feature. So label, I can choose a feature, right? And we can also choose the milestones for 0.1. But we should try and do as many as we can in here, so that way, you know, we have features that are descriptive. Scrolling ocean background, number one. Let's do other ones. So after the scrolling ocean background, that's the first thing. I want to add in there the player's avatar. So add, need to add need to add a player's avatar. We'll call this the plane, right? And that is definitely a feature we're going to have to add in. It's almost like a requirement. And milestone, we'll look at that 0.1 and submit. Okay, that's that one. Nice and fast today, I can see. And a new issue, we're going to add in some island, right? So the island. So add island to game as player point generator, points generator. That's what it does. You generate points through the island, and we'll say labels, feature, and then we're going to choose a milestone version 1. Submit that one. So we want to do that today. And let's add a new issue. We're also going to do a clouds. Add cloud. We'll say clouds, and we'll say enemies for player to avoid. Right? That's all it's going to be right now. And this is going to be a feature. Now you might say this is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot, but we can get it done. This is all doable within a day, right? No problem. Right now, I'm not sure that I'll add anything else. I think we've got the clouds. I'm not sure if I can get collisions working today, or noises, anything like that. Because remember, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you the build where we do top scrolling. You're going to do side scrolling. For your assignment 4, you take what I'm doing and flip it on its side. That's what you're going to do. So you go one way or the other, whether it's right to left or left to right, that kind of game. Please, again, no car games. All right? Just putting it out there. People can continue to give you that anyway. Huh? It just, people don't know how to not overlap the cars. They just, they can't figure it out. So it looks like they're just overlapping. It doesn't look right. And then it doesn't look realistic. If they were to bump into each other, talk to me. If you really want to do a bumping into each other kind of car game, I understand. It's more work, and we have to think about that. All right, so add clouds, enemies for the player to avoid. Now, again, these are very high level, right? Very high level features that I want, right? And you can make it so that each feature is has a user story attached to it, right? So you can say, the player, as a player, I should be able to move my plane left and right, but not up and down, right? That could be your user. That could be a user story that's attached to the player object, right? And those kind of things. As a player, I should be able to avoid deadly clouds, in order for me to survive. You can phrase the user story however you like, or nothing. Like we put nothing in there, no details, right? Let's see if there's any other issues. We've got 3 issues right now. So island, player, and ocean. What happened? Did I not make an issue? Island, player, ocean. Where's the clouds? Somehow it didn't go through. Oh, okay, no issue. Oh, there it is. I didn't add it in. So we have to do a feature for this one, and we're going to go milestone. Somehow it didn't take, and submit new issue. There we go. Okay, there's 4 things we want. Again, these seem to be very small things, but I need to do some explanation, and that's why I don't know if I can do more than this today. Right? It sounds like nothing, but really, it can be quite a lot. If, as we're going, we want to add more, we can, and I'm going to base it off this milestone. So let's start off. What I want to do is, and I guess it's something that we have to do. We also need to clean up. That's a cleanup of the original play scene, because the play scene right now is not cleaned up, right? So we need to do that. So clean up. We'll say a new issue. We need to clean up the play scene. Clean up. That's actual work, right? Clean up. Play scene, make room for new features, right? We're going to call this an enhancement or a fix. I don't know. Maybe we can say we'll call it an enhancement for now. You can call it whatever you like. Something that makes sense to you for your build. Okay, but it's something we have to do. It's a little bit of a job that we have to do to make this thing go. So again, we have 5 issues right now, so 5 things to do. So I'm going to start off with clean up play scene to make room for new features. I think that's kind of reasonable to do. So let's do that. So I'm going to go back into here. And I'm going to go into my scripts. Under scripts, there's scenes. And under scenes, there is the play scene. Here it is. So the play scene right now has a play label, right, and a next button. Both those things can go bye-bye. I don't need them right now. I don't need those two things in the scene, right? So these two things, don't need them. Let's take them out. Okay. I'll leave the constructor in play right now, and I'll leave core stage add child this. We're going to fix that core stuff later on by creating a class called game, but for now, let's leave it alone. And all this stuff is going to be gone because we don't need any of that stuff in our core, in our play. This start button.click will leave because we're going to use this same code later on when we actually die, right? So for now, there's no way of getting to the game over scene. We know it works, but what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a place to put in our features, right? All right, so we've done this thing. Let us make sure that when you run this thing, if I go Command Shift B, I can certainly energize the task runner, right? And remember, my task runner, the way it works, if I was to look at task.json, you can see that I also do a watch task. So that means anything that runs will continue. It'll continue to update as I go now. All right, we need to add some new objects. But before I do, I want to explain what I'm going to do here with the ocean, because it's important for you guys to understand. So let's open up inside Mail Pilot Build. There are some assets I've already included. For example, there are some audio, fonts, and images. Here's images. And one of them is the ocean GIF, right? I'm going to open this up in my friendly neighborhood fireworks. You can choose GIMP. You can choose paint.net. You can choose anything else. But I've got an idea of what this thing will look like. Here it is, right? OK, cool, cool. I want to also add a box. So I'm just going to go here just to show you, just to illustrate what I want to do here and how it's going to work. So here's my rectangle tool. And inside this thing, I'm going to add a box. Don't worry about the background. The background is going to be transparent right now. So I'm going to kind of choose a transparent background. There we go. But I want to put a nice border on it. So I want you to picture what I'm doing here, this box here. And just bear with me while I do the rectangle. The border is, we're going to make it nice and thick so you can see it. So we'll make a border of 3. Right there, or maybe more, 5. There we go. So that's our the border. And I also want to make sure that this box is 640 by 480. So it's exactly the size it should be. So this is 640 by 480. And we're going to make it, so it's fixed. I'm going to put it at the top. So it's going to be 0 and 0. And I want to explain what I'm going to do here. So here's 0 and 0. OK, so imagine this is your ocean. OK, actually, this is what your ocean will look like, right? And I'm going to lock this rectangle. So I can't move the rectangle, but I can move the ocean. So I can't even click on it, right? So just another layer that I've locked up. And by the way, this is a feature that's similar with Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever. I'm just locking it up so I can't access this layer. Okay, now what I want to do here is I want to move the ocean. So imagine this is your viewport. The only thing you see is this right here, right? Your ocean then should start here, right? And every frame, I'm going to move the ocean. That's all I'm going to do. Down. I'm going to move the ocean down a set number of pixels per frame. Let's say 5 pixels. So it's going to move down. 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 And it's going to come to the point where the ocean meets the top of the viewport. If it goes down here, we're going to see blank. We don't want that, right? We want it to move here. As soon as it comes to here, so here's the if statement. If the top of my ocean meets the top of my viewport, we're going to figure what that means, how we do that, right? Then reset. I want to reset this back to here, right? And then do it again. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going until the top of my ocean meets the top of my viewport, right? And then reset again. So I'm going to need a reset method. That's part of my object. I'm going to need to be able to scroll my ocean down, and I'm going to need to update my ocean every frame, right? That's what I'm going to need to do. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's do it. Now, I've taken the liberty inside of your files. Now, if you look at the core, under core.game.ts, right? Here it is. Notice that I've added in some objects. I've preloaded some objects for you. Here's my start button. Here's my restart button. Here's my next button. Here's my X button. We need to also preload the ocean because we don't have that in play right now. So if you notice, here's my assets. I'm going to go to my images, and the ocean is ocean.gif. So I'm going to take one of these things here, doesn't matter which one, copy it, and then comma, paste. And underneath that, I'm going to call this ocean. There it is. And it's ocean assets images and we have to make sure that it matches the name, ocean.gif. Right? Now, why is it a GIF? Why is it not a TIFF? Why is it not a PNG? Why is it not a JPEG? It could be a JPEG. JPEG's okay. Yes.
Have you ever had an issue where you're adding like an image in there, and then when you like reference it, it
Give you something else?
recognizes the image?
Give you something else, or it doesn't recognize it?
Yeah, like it says like say I'm trying to use a class to adjust the width and stuff. It says width of the phone.
Yes, because you can't. If your image is instantiated, right? And if it's not, but this does instantiate. What this does is it creates a blob, right? So it takes away the issue that we had before, where it's trying to figure out how big the class is, how big the object is, to do a registration point, right? And that's where you might have the issues. But it should give you that issue. As soon as you preload it, it should be okay.
It's because like for my last assignment,
Yeah.
it worked for everything else except for one button. Like,
That's
I had
weird.
one button, it wasn't working
Yeah,
correctly.
that's right. Make sure you change. Make sure that the ID is unique, and that your path is correct. Those are the two things that can mess you up. Okay, well, I'll take a look at it. Anyway, so what we've had is, just to reiterate, I'm just putting an ocean. This is the ocean asset, and it points to where the image is inside of my folders. Okay, that's the first thing. So now I need I'm going to have to make a new module. So I'm going to go to Objects, right-click, New File, and we're going to call this Ocean, right? .ts. Now remember, once we create ocean.ts, if it's watching, it's going to transpile everything. It just did it already, right? And it's just transpiled. Again, if you want to use something like Cloud9, hell, if you even want to use Visual Studio Online Monaco, we'll talk about that later on, which is part of Azure, right? You can do that too. So you can actually work with Azure directly online with no Visual Studio Code, right? There's actually a little tools section. I can show you that maybe if you have time later. Okay, so here's Ocean. I'm just going to get rid of game for a second and even play, just to work on Ocean. I know I need to make to declare a module. So here's my module, objects. We're adding to the objects module. Right now it's a big module. And inside there we want to export the class, which we're going to call Ocean with a capital O. All right? Same as before, same structure we've seen already, right? We need a constructor, right? And the constructor right now, let me ask you this question. Ocean, it's a GIF. I'm going to use inheritance. What am I extending? Bitmap, right? So I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. So Ocean then extends create.js.bitmap, right? We know this, and therefore, if it does, I need to make a call to the superclass, and the superclass requires an imager URL, right? That I'm going to get for my image path or whatever it's going to be, my image name, image string, right? And notice if I want to really keep consistent, what I can do is I can look at something like button. Here's my button, and my button, if you notice, is this exact thing. I'm going to send this over to the superclass. So core assets get result name string. I want that, or image string, and my image string is going to be here. I might as well copy this kind of stuff. And once I start copying, you got to think to yourself, You should always say to yourself, if I'm copying, there might be an opportunity for me to create a class every time. So I've just copied image string. I've declared it as a string. That's one thing. And the other thing I want to do is, if I go back to my button for a second, here's my button class. Here it is. So I'm getting this information, and then I'm sending it right in there. Notice that is centered is just a local variable. I haven't had need to do anything special with this one. But here, this one is important, eh? So I need this piece. So core assets get result image string. I need that. All right, so I'm going to get that. Now, am I making a generic Ocean? No, but there's a reason. There's a method to my madness. All right, so I'll put that in there too. And that's the image string. The image string is going to kind of just transport everything into the superclass, and then we're good to go. So now my superclass in the future will have an image, which is the ocean, a reference to the image that's the ocean. Okay? Yay. Okay, that's the first thing. So I've got my ocean. Now here's the question. Do I want to, in my demo that I just did with Fireworks, did you see that my registration point was in the middle somewhere? Or it wasn't. It was in the top left corner. I'm using the top left default registration point for my image in this particular case. Why? Because 0, 0 of my viewport, which is this piece here, this black line, right? And 0, 0 of my ocean have to be the top left corner, has to be. basically, these two things would match in this particular case. I'm not going to move the registration point to the middle somewhere. That would be wouldn't be good for us to do. All right. So that's one thing I don't have to do. All right. Cool. I also want to put together a property or some kind of instance variable. So we're going to create some instance variables. So we'll say private instance variables. And one of the instance variables that I want to create is the speed of my ocean, right? In the x direction. We're going to call it the change in x, dx. All right. So we're going to say underscore dx, right? Which is a number. We're going to declare this as a number, and we're making it private because, again, we don't care to share that outside of the class. That's not important. And the other thing is, if you notice, I'm using the underscore to indicate that it's a private variable. Yes, one thing. Okay, so I've got my private variable. That's it. I also need, aside from my constructor, an update function for my ocean object, right? So I'm going to make a public. This has to be public update function. Okay, we'll make a public update, lowercase, right? And what this is going to do is return void. But what we're going to do here is every time the ocean updates or the stage updates or refreshes, I want to be able to move my ocean. So in update of my ocean, I want to take my current x and add dx to it. Okay, that's one thing. So I'm just declaring my methods. The other thing is I need some kind of initialization option. Well, guess what we're going to call this one? Public start. Right? Just to follow the same pattern, returning void. Right? And in my start method, which I'm going to call in my constructor. So here's I'm going to call this.start, right? Oops, start. I'm going to call this start in my constructor. It's going to initialize my stuff in here. Anything that I want to initialize, variables, whatever, is going to happen in start. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say this example underscore dx. We're going to set this equal to 5. Right? So in other words, 5 pixels per frame. That's what we're going to. That's how fast we're going to move down. Oh, sorry, and it should be dx or should it be dy? I think it should be dy. Yeah. Let's rename the symbol to dy. That would be probably more conducive, huh? dx would be in left. So dy, we're moving down 5 pixels per frame down, right? Remember that positive y means down the screen, and negative y means moving up the screen, which we don't want to do. Okay, that's the first thing. So we have this positive dy. That's one thing we're doing. Also, in update, what we want to say for the ocean is, well, our y coordinate is plus equal to this dot underscore dy. So we need to do that every frame. So every frame, every time I update, I'm going to add 5 pixels to the current y position of my object. Okay, so current y position is going to add 5 pixels every frame, every time I update. Okay. So that's what this is going to do. Okay, but we need to check to see if the top of my object gets to the top of my of the screen. So when the top of my object is 0, that means that I'm going to start it off screen. My top of my object isn't going to start at 0, 0. It's going to start off a negative value. Well, going back to my little diagram, this whole thing is 1440 pixels long or tall, right? So it's 640 by 1440. And if you figure it out, there's 3 screens tall, right? So 3 of these screens, 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. And that means that I got to start this off approximately up here. Now, it's not 959, but really 960 if I'm not wrong. And if you want to calculate that, if you take 480 times 2 and the negative direction, so you want to start off screen. The top of the ocean will start off screen at 960, negative 960. All right, and you can see that right here. And this I use some kind of photo or something. Let's put 960 here to show you what I'm talking about. So this is what's going to stop 960 and the y coordinate. Make sure that this 0x is 0. And then what's going to happen is it's going to scroll down from minus 960 until, if you notice, the y coordinate hits 0, until y is equal to 0, greater than or equal to 0. And because I have to say greater than or equal to 0 because that's going to be my break point, if you will, or my boundary. When my y coordinate, this dot y, is greater than or equal to 0, reset. Okay, I don't have a reset function, but we can program that in right now, right? So I'll say, okay, update it, but That's fine, but what I want to do is check bounds. So I'm going to call the this dot check bounds method, and check bounds is going to be an internal method that I'm going to call. I don't have it yet, so check bounds. I'm going to do that every frame. So check bounds, check bounds, check every frame. I'm checking to see if I hit the boundary. This is this is a public method. Put private methods before my public methods, like up here, and I'm gonna annotate this in a second. So here's private. So we'll call this underscore check bounds. Okay, and right now it returns void. And what we're going to say is inside the check bounds method that if this dot greater than or equal to 0, right? Then we're going to call this dot underscore reset. Well, we don't have a reset method, but you see where I'm going, right? We're going to reset the screen, and we're going to annotate this in a second. We're going to reset this back to where it's supposed to go. Okay, that's cool. I like the reset thing. Well, I mean, it's another private method. So here's private reset. The reset method is also going to return void. What does this reset method do? Well, it says that my y, right, is going to be minus 960. So this dot underscore y, or sorry, this y is equal to negative 960. Now you might say, oops. You might say, hold on a second. Why don't you just say, you know, this dot y is equal to negative 960. That's all we're doing with the reset. Yes, that's all we're doing right now. But remember, I have an underlying reason. I have a method to my madness. There's a reason why I'm doing it this way. I've done this before a couple times, right? So this is the starting point, minus 960. Well, we want to be able to reset when we start, which means I'm going to call reset upon start for the first time. So I'm going to say, well, you know what? This dot underscore reset. So when I start my game, I'm going to reset my thing back to where it's supposed to go. So it's going to start at minus 960. That's the y coordinate. The x coordinate is still going to be 0. It's never going to change. I'm not going to touch the x coordinate in this particular example. Okay, we're done. Ocean's done. Let's check to see. First, let's annotate everything. But before we annotate, we're going to check to see everything, where everything's done. And then I'm going to put some comments in here to fill this up so you can see it. So let's check to see what my logic is. Okay. So in my constructor, when this object is created, I pass in the image string. It passes to the super class, right? And the super class needs to know only what the image looks like. Okay, that's number 1. 2, I call the start method. The start method, which is public, that's up to here. Start method calls the reset method, that's private, which makes the y coordinate minus 960. That's all it does right now. In the future, we might have other objects that are modeled after this object where the reset method does other things. Okay? And then we're going to call the check bounds method every frame, right? First we initialize our dy value to 5, right? This is a hard-coded value, by the way. We can try and avoid this, but for now it's hard-coded. And then our update method, we say this: every frame add dy pixels, right, to the y coordinate. So it's going to start going down, dy. It's going to move down every frame, right? And then check bounds. So make sure that every frame, you're going to see that the y coordinate hasn't surpassed the y. It cannot be greater than or equal to 0. Once it's greater than or equal to 0, reset it again back to minus 960. So that's going to create this idea. It's going to scroll, and it's going to keep on resetting over and over again. So it looks like a continuous scrolling background. It's an illusion, and most games are illusions. It's all tricks. Huh? No, you don't agree? It's an illusion? It's an illusion, buddy. You've been lied to your whole life, yes. The games are all tricks. That's all they are. You good?
So the start and the update we're making public so we can call them in
start I'm making public because I have a underlying motive for doing such a thing, right? But I could make start private if you really want to think about it. The only thing I really need to make public is update. I'm making public start because of my methodology, not for any other reason, okay? Just saying. All right, let's test this out. So first of all, we have to do the whole thing that we do when we add a module. So we've added this part. This is step 1. Step 2, we need to add it to the index.html file, right? So this, now we got to think about how this goes. Should our scenes know about our ocean? And definitely. So I think all the objects have to come first, but they have to come after the scene object, the asset, the button, all that stuff. I think it's good to put it right here. This is a great place for it to go. right? Any kind of new objects we're going to have in, we can put them in. By the way, you could have split this off into another folder, called it something else like game assets or some other thing, game objects instead of just objects. You know, I made it easy only because I don't want to split too many of these things that drive you guys crazy. So we'll call this ocean, right? So ocean.js gets added in. So that's step 2. We're good. Now, step 3, we need to go into our reference.ts, and just in the same place underneath our scene object right here, we're going to copy and paste it in here. And again, this is old school, you know, setup, but I think it always works for me when I do it this way, right? So this is a great tried and true way of doing it. Okay, so then I'm done. So I've got this piece done. Now we need to test it, and the way to test it, of course, is inside of my play scene. So in my scenes, I got to go to my play scene. Here it is now. And notice I need a reference to my ocean object. So we're going to say, okay, what is it? Well, it's definitely private because I don't need to share my ocean, right? And we're going to call it underscore ocean, right? Which is of type objects dot ocean. That's the new type because we just created that type, right? Okay, so once we've created this type, now I can use it. It's inside my class. It's a class variable. What I'm going to do here is in start, right? I can initialize it, right? Here's my start. I can initialize it in start. And what I'm going to do in start is say something like this. This dot underscore ocean is equal to a new objects dot ocean, and all I'm going to need to pass in there is the image string of this ocean, right? Now, here's something like I talked about before. If I only have one ocean, then kind of redundant. Maybe I should just hard code ocean into my ocean object, and then I just say object.ocean, and there's nothing in the constructor, empty constructor, right? I could do that too. Let's leave it alone. We'll have an opportunity for us to refactor later, right? Okay, so now that I've done this, I want to add it to this container object, right? So we're going to say something like this dot add child ocean, right? That's where we do it, and of course is this dot underscore ocean. Okay, so we're adding it. All we're doing here is we're adding the ocean to our scene. That's all I'm doing, right? And by the way, the order is important because it's a display list, right? So we're going to add it in. This is the lowest object. The ocean should be in the background, right? Okay, good. And now we have to make sure that in our scene we call the update method of the ocean, right? So in here in my method where it says scene updates happen here, we're just going to get rid of this little thing, and we're going to say this dot underscore ocean dot update. Why? If we don't do this, it'll never update. We'll never see the ocean scroll. Okay, so that's it. That's our scene so far. My play scene has an ocean, right? My play scene's ocean got added into the scene. That's the sec. So first I declare the object. Next I add it to the scene. Then I make sure that the update, if it has an update, gets added into our public update method with a capital U. So that way I can update it. If it's called here, then inside of our core game.ts file, if you notice, we also have an update method, which is called here. So this current scene, which would be the play scene in this particular case, calls its global update method, which in turn calls all the objects that are linked to it, their update methods, and so everything gets updated in a cascade. Okay, that's what happens. Whew. Okay, let's test. That's the next piece, and then we can update our thing. Okay, so our project. So I'm going to kind of save and just kind of close up, open up in terminal. Again, even if I have a terminal, I can open up another one. It's not a problem. Here's our light server, right? And it's already running. Let's take a look and see what happens. So if I go to my light server, I should have, if I click start, should have a scrolling ocean. Now you might say it's awesome, but I mean, it doesn't take anything. But remember, I've done this a couple times before, right? So the ocean's going to scroll, and it's going to scroll forever. You should really test it to see what's going on, see what's happening. Is it perfect? No. Watch. See, tell me where you see a problem. Oh, see it? It's so minor, right? And in the ocean, because it's an ocean, you can hardly tell. It's not really that, something that you can see. So, but the problem is going to be when you guys do a right to left, when you guys do a right to left scroll, if you have a beautiful scene in the background and somehow it's not tiled, you're going to see one of these. It's gonna like rock back and forth. It's gonna rock your world. Okay, you don't want some kind of hard split. You want to make it. This is the trick to this. If you really want to do this, end of the actual background and the beginning should be empty, right? And so that way, there's nothing. It looks like there's no transition at all. We just see like empty, and now we know we're transitioning, but there's no like, right? It's not going to look like weird, right? So be careful, especially like some people do space games. Okay, space game. I go right to left space game, and I'm traveling through space, and I see space, and then all of a sudden, you know, I have some kind of star, and all of a sudden, oh wait, now I see a nebula. It's like it doesn't make any sense, right? You'll see when you try it on your own. It's kind of a pain in the ass. So this is kind of good. We're good here. We've tried it out locally. It works, right? We should try it remotely, and I'm not sure that I have anything on Azure right now. Remember, this is called 397 boilerplate. Let's change this to, this shouldn't say boilerplate, this should say mail pilot. I forgot to do, that's a bug, right? So let's just kill this one for, actually I'll just go into refresh. And I'll go into, this is the good thing about this, you can stop the game by going to the menu scene, right? So you don't have to keep on having it play. And if I go back into here, I know that my core, so if I go into scripts core, I know that my game.ts scene itself and my index.html, the title shouldn't say COMP397 boilerplate, it should say mail pilot. Mail pilot, right? That's what it should say. That's definitely something we have to change. Okay, but I have this commit, and the commit, it fixes, right, or it solves, or it closes, right, issue number whatever it is, right? So it closes number 4. Or it closes issue number whatever, right? Let's try out and see if I did. I did it a couple times, and I always have this problem. So this solves, but now what issue does it solve? That's the other thing we need to know. So we go back here. We know we did a couple things. We cleaned up the play scene, which we've done in one blow, and we've added our ocean to the background. So it's clean. It closes number 1 and number 5. All right, let's try this out. So see if it works. So added ocean object to play scene, and this is which closes number 1 and number 5. Man. Okay. What? And now we want to push the one we're running with, and if I notice over here, you can see that I'm 0.1. Right, so if I go get status, you can see that I'm on branch 0.1, and I have one commit, right? So what I want to do is I want to say git push origin. Instead of master, we're going to go 0.1 because that's where we're pushing to, and press enter. All right, so pushed it. Let's go back to GitHub online and refresh. Of course, it's not going to take care of any of these issues. Yes, and we have to close some of the issues. So the scrolling background closed and the play closed. So we're going to say this is closed. So we're going to say close issue for now. And we're also going to go into, this is a quick way of doing it. We're also going to go into the scrolling background. We're going to close that issue too. Close issue, right? So those two things are done. You can see there are milestones moving along quite nicely. So we may have to do some other things in here. Maybe we'll make a version 0.2, right? All right, cool. So we've got our issue. If I go to my issues here, I can see that we've got 3 issues left, and my milestone's running right now at 40%. So we're already done 40% of what we had to do. But there's only 5 issues, right? Okay. Again, you can make this as complex as or simple. I'm making it very simple for you guys so you understand how this flow works, right? We had a lot more issues last week. We had like 10 issues or something like that, or 15 we were dealing with. We closed all of them within about 3.5 hours. We don't want to go 3.5 hours today. All right, I'm just saying. So let's continue. So we've got that. Let's test it on Azure. And you know what? We probably should have some kind of issue that says test, you know, and until this won't close until it's closed. Like we know that this version is thing. So we'll say something like new issue, and we'll say need to test on Azure, right? And as a label, this is kind of a, it's almost a requirement or whatever, but we'll just call it an enhancement, right? And we'll say for milestone, we'll go version 1, right? So we'll add that in, submit new issue, need to test on Azure. We're going to continue to test on Azure through the whole time, but we need an Azure site to do it. So we're going to go portal.azure.com, right? And I probably just disabled the other one that I had up because I moved the Git repositories. That's okay. Oh, one thing to note is, I just got to point this out. Azure can definitely fill up. Okay, if you have a lot of stuff going on with Azure, it will give you an error if it's full, right? So remember, you know, you got to clean up some of the old examples if you don't need them. I had a bunch of them that I had to clean up, and that's fine. Like I have this one here, COMP397 app. I'm just going to clean this one up because I don't need it right now. So the way you clean it up, of course, you go into the item and just click delete. So this is just a test that I was doing the other day. I don't need this one. And once it deletes it, it'll take you back to the main menu here, and you'll see that there's a thing that says deleted. Just get rid of it. So now that space is freed up. You don't have unlimited space. You have some space. So I'm going to add a new. And by the way, if you get a deployment issue, sometimes it's because of space. New web and mobile. I'm going to click a new web app. I'm going to call this thing COMP397 mail pilot build demo, right? And we'll also kind of add in there summer 2016 because I'll probably do other ones, guaranteed. Right? And the reason I'm saying mail pilot build demo is just in case you guys call it mail pilot build or mail pilot, it won't conflict with mine. And then, you know, I'm going to kind of use Canada East and click create. Oh, I didn't pin it to dashboard, of course. Yes, Tom. So it's done, it's deployed. Let's take a look at all of our resources. If you want to find the resource for this one, you can always skip down and load more. These are all the ones I have. You can see that there's tons and tons that I've got going on, right? So, you know, I want to find the resource, so I can certainly search for it. So I can filter. There it is. So I'm going to filter as COMP397, right? So only the ones that are COMP397 are here. There's mail pilot build demo, right? And you see that's Canada East. Now, if I click on this one, if I click on this one, right? It's going to pull up this, right? This isn't exactly what I want, this one. If I pull up this one, this is what I want. That has a little globe on it, right? And I need to first do two things. I want to pin this one up, right? So notice there's a little pin. I want to pin that one up, right? So it's pinned to the dashboard. And then the other thing is just simply forget to pin it. And the other one is I want to go down to where it says source control under publishing. I'm going to click on public deployment source and click on GitHub. Under GitHub, I'm going to choose, well, it should be under GitHub, I'm going to choose, instead of personal, I'm going to go to Centennial. And then from a project perspective, I'm going to choose the latest project, which is COMP397 Summer 2016 Mail Pilot Build. Here's the question. I can choose the branch, right? So right now my Mail Pilot Build is here, but right now my branch is master. Please choose the right branch. Right now it shouldn't be master, it should be 0.1, right? Because that's the one I'm working with. And you can always change the branch up here by going to deployment and changing the deployment to something else. I'm going to choose just 0.1. Why is this good, right? Well, because I can be running on 0.1 for a while with testing, and finally when I deploy and I merge, I can merge back into the master branch and use that one. All right, let's take a look and see if this one is good. I can look at this and it's going to error out. That's fine, right? It's not ready yet. And you can always check the deployment by going to the deployment source and letting it, and it'll show you a little picture of something that's rotating. That's good. So now it should be ready. Let's just refresh. There it is. If I click my start scene, then I should have my scrolling motion in the background. So right now, everything works for Azure. I think we're good to go. And I've set it up so we can do this again and again, right? OK, let's refresh. Why am I checking Azure? Because you guys are going to have to deploy on some live site. My live site is Azure. You may want to use your school server or whatever. That's fine, too. I would accept that. But you need to have some kind of deployment flow. And I want to be able to see your live site. For assignment 4, it's required for you to have a live site somewhere, okay? Whether it's on Azure, Heroku, wherever you choose to have it, okay? Okay, next. So I've got this piece done. What's the next one? Well, I've added my ocean. You know what? I'll tell you right now. What I want is before I add my player, I want to add my island so it scrolls along with my ocean. Now, the great thing is that if I got ocean, pretty much got island, right? I'll tell you in a second. I'll explain that. Why? So if I go to game.ts, remember I have to add a reference to my island. So I'm going to make a comma here and add another object that I'm going to preload. I'm going to copy it and paste. And instead of ocean, go into assets, images, and it's called island.ping. So that's what I got to make sure it is. So here's island. And instead of ocean.gif, it's island.ping, PNG, island.ping. There it is. So we've got that preloaded now. That's in my game.ts file, right? That's number 1. 2, I'm going to add in, so all I've done is done this for those people who are watching, right? So just added in another asset. If you're really keen to, you can add all the assets in there, right? If you really want to. We're going to go back and fix them. Just make sure they're named properly or it'll crash, right? I'm just going to do them one by one, just so that way I don't preload anything I don't need. Okay, good. So in the core, I've done my work. I need to add in my objects, I need to add another object, right? Which is island. So right click, new file, island.ts. Okay, so let's think about this now. So before I start doing anything special here, I've got my ocean. Let's load in my island. So I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to go back into that place that I had it. So I'm going to go to Desktop and COMP397. Here's my mail pilot build. Here's my assets and my images, and I have my island. I'm just going to open it up. And it's going to open up separately, but I'm going to copy this thing, and I'm going to move it into this side, right? So I'm paste. And you know what? I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. So here's imagine this is my ocean, and here's my island. This is important to do, and here it is. So I wanted to start here, and then it's going to kind of go down. And then when it comes to here, I want it to reset. But I don't want it to start here, because that means it'll just appear suddenly, right? I want it to start off screen, and then it's going to kind of come down like this. This is the effect that I want. And as the island rolls underneath my viewport like this, it's going to come to here, and then once it comes to there, pop, reset again, right? But it can't just come here. I want a random location. So I want to come here. Maybe it'll start over here. Maybe it'll start over here. Here's what I don't want. I don't want it to do this. This would be bad. And I don't want it to do this. This would be bad, right? So definitely can't be anywhere in here. It has to be either from here, right, off screen, to here, off screen. That's what I want it to do, all right? Has to be off screen, and when it comes to here, anywhere below this line, it's going to reset back to a random location, a random X location up here. Hey guys, I just told you what I want. That's my code, right? And I've got all the reset, and I've got my start, and I got everything in Ocean. Oh man, I'm going to copy again. I'm copying. Damn, I can probably, well, I could extend Ocean, but it doesn't make any sense that business rules wise that I would extend Ocean, right? You know, I'm going to keep extending and extending and extending, especially with cloud. I'm going to do the same thing with cloud. Cloud's going to come down, reset, right? I might have the cloud be different sizes. It might have different things the cloud does, but that the Ocean doesn't. But I know for sure that over and over again, I'm going to have an object. I'm going to move it down, and I need some certain class I want to use over and over, or certain methods I want to use over and over again. Okay, I could use an abstract class, right, that I call game object. I could make a game object superclass that I call, and I put it inside, just like I made an abstract class scene. I could make an abstract class game object, and then if it's a game object, I can kind of compare it, and I'll need it later when I do my collisions, right? I could do that. And right now, I could make it so that it is a bitmap, right? Later on, we could change the type. So I'm just showing you here, we're seeing repetition, right? The simplest thing for us to do before we refactor, right? Before we refactor. And I think refactoring, remember, we're looking at, and I want to point this out to you guys really, in your mind, you're like, we need an abstract class. Hold on, is that part of our feature set for 0.1? Hell no, it's not. We want minimum viable product. I want to pump out because I'm doing a little iteration, I'm doing a little thing. I want to get it going right now. It may not be perfect. I have 0.2 to do that. I have 0.3 to do that, right? Remember, I want to get my sprint done. I only have a few things to do, and what I'm talking about is rewiring things, and it's going to go back, and I have to fix Ocean again. That's not part of 0.1. I could. I'm telling you I could, right? And I know I'm going to do it, right? Not in this sprint. Here's what you could do. make a new milestone, add another issue, add it to the new milestone, 0.2. That's something that's viable. Example would be this. So I will go back here, and I'm figuring this out. I want to add a new issue. So here's the new issue. So go to issues, and I want to have a milestone. First of all, let's add a new milestone. We'll call it version 0.2. Here's our milestone, right? No due date. And 0.2 hasn't started yet, but we're getting an idea of what we want in 0.2 because we're building 0.1 and we're figuring things out. So let's go back to issues, right? And I know this is, you might think that this is nuts. Like you would probably try and fix it right away, yeah? No, because you won't finish your sprint if you do it this way. If you every time you sit there and go, hey, I got to fix this. I might as well. We're going to get the case of the might as wells. Did I ever tell you about the case of the might as wells? It's a story. Right, Neil, you're going to understand, right? Who's ever done construction in their house, and any time ever? Okay, if you've ever done construction any time, right? It's like this. I want to. Here's what I want to do. I want to fix my bathroom and tile my bathroom, right? That's what I want to do. That's the project. Tile my bathroom, and you're like, tile my bathroom? Okay, that's easy. So and then I realized that you know what? That the drywall on one side of my bathroom is a little bit. It needs to be replaced. So I figured that out. It's just a bug I need to fix. I need to replace my bathroom tile or my bathroom thing. So I take the drywall down, right? And then behind the drywall, I see these copper pipes, right? And I'm like, holy crap, I can't have copper pipes in my house, right? I might as well fix the copper pipes. So I go there and I saw the copper pipes. I had to turn the water off in the entire house, right? And then in the wall next to the copper pipe, I noticed there's some knob and tube wiring. Oh man, I can't have knob and tube wiring. Let's take that crap out of there. So I go into the wall, open up the other wall, right? Might as well, since the wall is open, and replace all the knob and tube. And as I worked to the other wall, I realized, oh my God, my HVAC. I got a big hole in my HVAC. I got to fix that, right? So I knocked down the other wall and I patch up my HVAC. Now what's happened? I've got scope creep. My scope was not to fix, even though it was nice to do. It's not to fix the knob and tube. It's not to fix the copper pipe. It's not to fix the HVAC problems. My scope was to tile the bloody bathroom. Please don't let the might as wells kill you, all right? Do not get a case of the might as wells. Well, might as well. No. The answer is this is your feature. You're going to work on the features that you promised for this particular sprint, and that's it. Leave everything else, enhancements, refactoring, testing, all that stuff to another iteration, another sprint. Okay, I know it's a big, long story, but I keep telling the story over and over again. People don't listen to me. Okay, so new issue. New issue is create game object. We're going to call it game object superclass, and for game, and when we for the game. The reason why is because when I created, that's one thing, right? And I'm going to say abstract. Game object superclass, right, for the game. And I'm going to put that in there. My label is going to be feature for sure, or an enhancement. Could be an enhancement as well. And then my milestone is not going to be 0.1. It's going to be 0.2. So I've already started building up 0.2, right, as I go. That's okay, because we're going to have some ideas as we go that we want to add to the next sprint, and we want to be able to capture these ideas so we don't lose them, right? But it's not part of our sprint right now. Okay, so notice that my milestones, I have two. This is still at 33%. One of them is open for version 2, version 0.2. Okay? I know it's long-winded, but guys and girls, please understand why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because we want to focus on key features we want to get out for my minimum viable product, my MVP, right? My MVP has to be developed, and I got to get it out for this sprint. Else, I failed. Okay? Let's go back. Okay, so I've got this mail pilot. It's working, and now I want to add in my ocean. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go, sorry, my island. I'm going to go into ocean, and I'm going to copy everything. But before I do, I think it's a great opportunity for me to document, right? And I didn't finish objects 100%, my ocean %. I could go in here and document, right? So I could say something like, my class is ocean, right? I'm exporting it, as an example, and I don't have, anything else I got to talk about here. I could also talk about my constructor. Oops. A constructor takes one parameter. I can also say at constructor, right? That's what this thing does. I could do reset, right, which is a private, and I could say at method underscore reset, right? And then, of course, one thing it doesn't do is returns void. That's what I know it does. And I can describe what that does in a second. I will, right? And I'll say, just to keep generic, resets the object outside of the viewport, right? I don't know what it's going to, I might use the same template to create my super duper class game object. And I don't want to redo some of these things, knowing that I'm going to do that. Check bounds to do the same thing. Oops. So at private, we'll say at method, right? Underscore check bounds. And at returns, we're going to tell it what returns. Void, right? And we're going to say, well, this method checks if the object has reached its boundaries. That's what it does, really, at the end of the day. This one, start, this is a public method, right? Which is the start method, right? So again, I can say at public, if I really want to, at method start, right? At returns void. Theoretically, I shouldn't have closed my issue before I did all this, right? And I could have said something like this. Method is used to initialize properties, public properties, and private instance variables, primarily, right? So what we do with it. So initialization kind of method, start method, right? Okay. And then this one, our update method, which again we can say at public, at method, which is update, at returns, void. And we can kind of give this one a thing that says this method updates the object every frame. That's what it really does. If we use it properly, you just put this in. Actually, anytime it's called, right? And really what it is, not every frame, objects, properties, and then we'll say every time it's called, every time it is called, it's called, right? Because it can be called manually, right? I can call public, I can call update anytime I want, right? Because it's public, or I can call it every frame, right? It's up to me. So that's what this does. So I've kind of annotated, I've given a description of everything. Also, what I like to do is I like to describe that this is the constructor section, right? So I kind of do that. So I say constructors. Might have more than one, right? Typically I don't, because in JavaScript you can't. But in other languages, you know, this is the same methodology I use for C#, Java, Swift, whatever, right? I have the same comments, right? And this area here is, and you should develop a style too. These are private methods. Go here. If I have properties, I put them in above my constructor as an example, but below my private instance variables, because they go private public. By the way, I do the same thing in C++. All right, private public, and this is my public methods. These are all my public methods. So why am I doing all this now? Because when I copy it, right, all this stuff's going to be copied, right? And I don't have to do it again. It's my template. I'm almost making a template within a template, right? Okay, good. I've got all my documentation. I've documented everything, right? And this is the ocean. This ocean class, I could put some details of what this is. This is the ocean object. used in the game. Okay, let's copy everything. So Command A or Control A, Command or Control C, and then I want to go to my island and paste. Woo! Okay, we have to make some changes. One is this can't be ocean anymore. It's got to be island, right? This can't be ocean. It's got to be island. This can't be ocean. It's got to be island. This can't be ocean. It's got to be island, right? Because I've changed those things, right? Yay! Okay, cool. Capital I for island, right? Okay, and we've got some of the same things, right? We're still going to reset, but is my island going to reset at minus? That's why it's good to do this without in our sprint. It's good to do it like this first, and then we can see the differences, right? Is my island going to be minus 960? Could be, but I don't recommend, right? Should be minus height, whatever the height of the island is. Uh-oh. Bing, bing. That means I have to detect how big the island is. How can I detect how big the island is? I can say whatever the height is equal to get bounds, right? So that sounds like an initialization step. Where am I going to do that? In my start method, right? Because this is what I'm doing. My start method is going to do all my initialization, right? So that's in my public start method, and that's before reset. Before reset, I'm going to reset. I'm going to set my my initialization properties. I'm going to say this dot width. I don't have a width, right? And if you notice, if I say width this dot width is and it's got to be. Here's a question for you: should I share the width and height, or should I make getters and setters, or should I just make them private? Right now, I don't think there's any reason to share the width and the height of the object. Just saying, right? Not yet, right? But we got to think about this. Sometimes what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the height of my object to kind of say, I want to be able to kind of, for collisions, I know I'm going to use half the height and half the width of my object sometimes from a collision perspective, right? So this is where I have to decide. I need to make a public property or getters and setters, all right, for private properties. So let's take a look at that as something we have to look up in TypeScript, right? Because TypeScript has getters and setters too, right? And let's see how it works. By the way, we're very close to version 2.0 of TypeScript. So I'm going to give you a version warning. They're in alpha right now, right? They're going to release 2 very shortly, okay? Okay, let's go into our documentation here. And under documentation, if I go to handbook, if I want to do things like getters and setters, right? There's a number of different ways I can do this. One is variable declarations, right? So under classes, if I go to, if I want to find this, you can see that they have several details here about how to set things up with variables and whatever. And if I go down and talk about functions and try catch blocks and everything else, but this really doesn't settle my thing about getters and setters, right? So how do I do getters and setters? It's const declarations. This is important. Let versus const. What it does, the difference between one and the other. Remember, I always talked about let is the way to go as opposed to var, right? That's definitely what we have to do when we do a thing. But down in here, when we start, all it talks about is this stuff for our variables. So nothing in there. How about under classes? Because classes have a lot of little things in there, right? Like the inheritance talks about how to do extends, the extends keyword in here. This is where you find all the details, right? Public, private, and protected modifiers. If I want to share something protected, we should almost never use, right? Unless it's absolutely necessary to solve a problem. We might use protected, but typically we want to do it as little as possible from a style perspective. It's not good, right? Parameter properties, we talked about those. Accessors. Okay, hey, there's accessors, right? And then we want to look at get and set because this is what we want to do. And there's some examples. Whoa, get full name. So first we declare a full name. This is perfect, exactly what I want, right? Get full name, and then full name, we have to use the get and the set keyword instead of public and private. Get is automatically, well, we could set it to private as well, but I don't know why we want to do that, right? But get and set is part of it. So we say the name notice that it's a different name, but this name and this name is shared. Also notice that I have to declare the set method, the setter method, as if it's a method. So I have to pass in, as an example, a parameter for what's coming into it. I can't use the value keyword, right, that we use in other languages like C#. C# says my value when I make a getter. I set the value to whatever it is inside the private name. I don't want to do that. But this is definitely what I want to do from my width and my height. I want to protect it. And why? Because I can use getters and setters just like methods. So I don't have to just use them as I can always share I can make this from private to public, right? I could do that too, but that's wrong. Object orientation says we should have private instance variables, public properties, private methods and public methods, but we shouldn't have everything public. And also, this methodology gives us more control because, as you can see, I can do a lot of other things here when I set something, as opposed to just add a value or set, use the equals operator to set the value. That's not what I want to do. So this is the methodology. So get and set are keywords. Let's try this out. So again, back up here, we need to declare for the island, we have dy. dy we need because dy is a private value that we're going to use. So we're going to use other ones. So we have private width, which is a number, and private height, which is also a number. These are our private variables, right? We also have public properties. Public properties. And we're going to use, the first one we're going to do is for the width, right? So we're going to use the get keyword, right? And we're going to call it width, capital W, right? Here's our width. We can also call it lowercase w. That's fine too. In our particular case, JavaScript is a little different. But typically in C# you make a capital W. JavaScript, lowercase w, all right? And if you notice, let's go back to the methodology. You can see that it's just like we're adding an accessor or a modifier to a function, right? So width is the function, right? When we get the width, it doesn't return void. We have to have a return. What does it return? A number, right? So that's the first thing that it returns, just like we're declaring a property. And because we're returning, we need to have a return statement, right? That's why it's giving us an error there. And what are we returning? This dot underscore width. Pretty simple. That's what it returns. So get width, this dot underscore width, that's what it returns, right? And the same thing goes with set. So we say set width, same name, right? And this time the setter returns void, right? Because we don't return anything with the setter, right? Now notice that in the setter, in this particular case, we didn't have a return, but what it does, we have to take in some kind of value. That's required. If you notice, if I hover over it, it says, I said actually, so cannot have a return type annotation. Okay, that's a problem. Oop. That's what I meant. And one thing it has to have in there is, if I hover over it again, it's still giving me an error. It says, set accessor must have exactly one parameter, right? So must have one parameter. And what am I setting? Well, it's a value of the width, right? Now, if you notice the example, when it goes back, it's some kind of new name because I'm getting the full name, right? So I'm setting the width. So it's, new width. Let's call it new width, right? Which is a number. Right? So the new width, whatever the new width thing is, you can also call it new value. And what we want to do is we want to say this dot underscore is equal to new width, just like you would normally do when you would set a value. So there's our getters and setters for the width, right? Methodologies. Let's do the same thing with our height. So get height. This is all new, by the way, for TypeScript. It's fairly new. So get height. We're going to return this dot underscore height, right? And the same thing goes with set height. We're going to take one parameter, a new height, which is a number. And what we're going to say is this dot underscore height is equal to new height. There we go. Okay, so our getters and setters are done for our width and height properties. Why am I doing this? This is my game object superclass. And if I had created a game object superclass, I would have to recreate it. Yeah, I will. Make sense? That's why it's best not to try and supersede your sprint or try and add other features, right? Because we don't have enough information yet. We wouldn't have had information until we did all these things. These are kind of prototypes that we're creating, right? So it's better to do it this way, and then we have an idea of all the things we want in our superclass as much as possible. By the way, it's not always perfect, and we're not always able to add everything in the beginning, but it's good to have as much information as possible. This is a good way of doing that. Okay, cool. So we got our getters and setters for our public properties, width and height, right? And now that we have that, in my start method, which is down here, I could say this dot width, and this dot width is is equal to, right? We're going to set this because we can do this, right? It's a setter. Now, can I do this? Can I do the equal sign? Just saying. Or do I say this? Do I have to do that? How does width look? How does it work? How does it work? If I try and do like a regular value, I can say this dot width using the setter method is equal to this dot get bounds, right? Dot width. You can, because now we're using a blob, right? And the same thing with height. This dot height is equal to this dot get bounds dot height. We'll check this out and see if it works, by the way. Height. Okay. If this works, we'll get our value for width and height in here. All right. Why am I getting this? Right? Because when I reset, I don't want to reset a number. I want to reset based on, you know, instead of resetting up here, here's my reset to minus 960. I want to reset according to the height of the object. So minus this dot height. Notice I'm using the getter, right? The property, right? I'm not using the private instance variable ever. Why? Because even internally, I can use the property, and that means I have more control. I can do things like console outs here. I can do all kinds of tests. I can assign other variables. I can update other objects. I can do all kinds of stuff when I set or retrieve information, right? Whenever I do data retrieval or setting, I have control when I have a getter and setter, and that's why we do it. Okay. Okay. So I've done this piece. I'm going to reset it, and I'm going to start off by resetting it the height of the object. That means, going back to our example before we take a short break, when I come to here, the height of the object, I'm going to reset it off screen. Oop, just exactly the height. Make sense? Now, the bounds. The bounds, I have two bounds, right? I have a bound that I can go this way, and I have a bound on this side, and I have a bound on this side. The only bound I need to check right now is the bottom, because I'm going to set it when I set the initial position of where it's going to start off, right? I'm going to set it so it's going to start off within. That's interesting. So when I reset now, my reset method is going to be different. I want a random value, right, for my x, and it has to be the minimum position is going to be on the left part of my screen, and the maximum position is going to be on the right part of my screen. That's going to be the random values. And also, this is something different we have to do. I have to also, in my start, change my registration values to the middle. I have to do that because in this case, I don't want to move around my object by the top left corner. I want to have the exact the center position of my object on the screen, right? It's more efficient, right? So again, this is your choice, design choice for me. I don't want to use top left corner. I want to use the middle, right? Which means I want to set my registration point by default to the middle. Okay, let's go back. So go back to here. That means in my start method, after I set my width and height, I want to change my registration point. I'm going to say this dot regex is equal to this dot width. Here it is, right? Multiplied by 0.5, right? And this dot reg is equal to this dot height, right? Times 0.5. So you see all these initializations are happening in start, and I'm doing that as soon as it's initialized, right? As soon as it's instantiated. Okay, cool. So I've got my regex and reg y value. That's cool. I want to be able to set the start from my x and y coordinate from 0 plus half my width to, 640 pixels, right, minus half my width. So I never can actually start the middle of my point outside of the screen. All right? Oh, man, I'm hard coding again. 640, 480, blah, 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 blah. You know what? I don't want to do it this time. But in my iteration number 2, now that I thought about it, I want to make sure that I create a config, right? So I'm going to go back to my GitHub here. I'm going to open up a new issue, right? Here's my new issue. And I'm going to go new issue. And I'm going to say add config class for screen so that we remove hard-coded screen-related values. right? That's what I want to do. Can't be on this one. It's definitely on a feature, right? And what I also want to do is I want to change it so it's milestone 2. So I got another one for milestone 2, right? Submit issue. Okay, still hasn't affected milestone 1. We've got 6 issues though, and you can see that there's a bunch of stuff going on. But from this milestone perspective, you can see that we're still at 33%. We got 2 for this one and 4 for this one. This is what happens sometimes, guys and girls, right? We work on it, and someone might work on another milestone on their own, in another branch. They did it on their own. Then we merge the branches. Has nothing to do with what I'm doing, because I can add a config class by going into my config module and adding in a screen class, right? Just like we've done for the other one, that gives me screen coordinates. So, for example, 640 would be my constant, or an enumeration for my max width for the screen width, or middle screen. I can make it something else, and so on, right? Right now we don't have that. We have configurations for the scene, right? My scene is my menu, my play, my over, and I want to make another one of these in my config folder. That's what I'm talking about for a screen. I'm not going to do it now. Okay, it's not part of my 0.1. Okay, I note it. It's something that I want to add later on. Okay, let's continue. So I'm going to go back to my close this on off. Back to my island. I'm almost kind of done. So I'm going to add this in. So when I do my check bounds, this is what's in my start. In my check bounds, that's one thing I want to check to see if it's right at the bottom. I'm not going to check that it's greater than equal to 0. Got to change this. But here's my reset. So I reset, and my x coordinate is going to be random, right? So I'm going to say this.x is going to be math.random, right? Math.random multiplied. So from 0, we're going to talk about this, all right? Multiplied by 640, right? If I kind of start like this, so anywhere between 0 and 640, that's nice, but that's anywhere from 0 to 640. So the middle of my thing is going to be 0 to 640 plus half my my width minus half my width at the other end. And I'll talk about this, right? So instead of 0, I'm going to add half my width. So on 640, instead of 640, it's going to be 640 minus this dot width, right, times 0.5. That's what I'm talking about, half my width. By the way, you can make as many of these brackets as you like, just to clarify. So this is what the first part is, right? And then the next part, and again, you can make it as simplified. You can take these brackets out. It's going to do order of operations anyway, but don't worry about that. Then the next one is I want to take this, right, and add half my width. This, dot width, right, plus 0.5 or times 0.5, right? I'm adding this up together. Might as well just do one of these too, just to make it really crazy. Why? Because this part, half my width and all this stuff here and this whole math.random, I want to surround this whole thing in here like this. Hold on a second. So all of this, I want to do a math.floor. Why? Because if I don't do this, I'm going to get a number that's not a solid pixel. I'm going to get like 0.31 something, right? I don't want that. I want an actual pixel, a real value. No, it'll work, but I want to get an actual pixel value. Yes? No, all it's going to say is, remember, math.random gives you a number between 0 and all the numbers, all the point values between 0 and 1, right? But never approaching 1, but never achieving 1, right? So that means that if I multiply by 640, right, that it'll go from 0 to 640, right? Point da-da-da-da-da-da. But 640 point something pixels doesn't make any sense. I don't want the point something pixels. I want it to be an integer, right? That's why I'm using math.floor. It'll chop off, it'll truncate all the point values, and it'll only give me a solid pixel. Okay? That's what this does. Yes?
This is where we're popping the island back on top of the...
No, what this does, this X, when you pop the island back in, it pops it beyond the point. But this, what it does, it decides where along the x-axis it appears, right? That's what this does. We'll have to test this later, right? So this is a random location around on the x-axis. So get a random x location. Right, that's what this is going to do. This height is going to reset, be outside of the screen, minus the height of the object. Not half the height, the whole height, right? Okay, cool. I want this, and then when I check bounds, instead of checking so it's greater than or equal to 0, it's got to be greater than or equal to 480 plus the height of my object, right? Why? Because I want the whole height of the object to kind of go below 480 at least, right? Or you can say half the height of the object if you really want to, because it's going to go, the middle point is what's happening. So it's going to go to the middle plus half the height of the object, right? There we go. So it's got to be greater than if this dot y is greater than, here's hard-coded value, 480, which would be like screen height. That's what it would be, right? 480, right? Plus this dot height, right, times 0.5. Uh-oh. Because I'm going to be a stickler here, right? So this. Now you don't have to put all these brackets. I'm putting them in so I'm just trying to identify that this is one value. You could have also created as a variable if you wanted to. And this is another value, right? You add 480 plus half the height. And then this is your check. Your actual condition statement is this, right? When this is true, you want to reset. I don't have to write it this way. I'm writing it to be very explicit. Okay, got that piece done. So width, blah, blah, whatever. It's going to reset different places. It's going to do check bounce. Does this change? This plus equals to this dot dy, this dot check bounce? Nope. This will never change. The update is identical. This still initializes everything, right? This, it checks to see if it's reached its boundaries. I don't know what the boundaries are. This is all good thing. This is good. I get a random x location. Resets the objects outside of the viewport and sets the x locations. How about that as an updated comment? Okay. Let's test. Before we test, we have to. This is part one of adding an object into our module structure. We need to add this into our index.html. We'll take a break after this. So go back up to here. I'm going to go into my index.html, and here it is right here. Now I'm being very slow here, guys and girls. Very, very slow. I'm taking it easy. I'm not going fast at all. If I was going to go fast, I'd be blurring right now. La, 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 la. I'm not doing that. With my island. Just adding it into the index.html like we normally do. This is just our regular stuff. And then what I want to do is I want to go into my game.t, in my core, my reference.ts, add that in here as well. So next to underneath the ocean, doesn't have, the order here doesn't really matter that much, but you want to kind of keep it on track. There's my island, okay? So I've added my path in place, and now in my play, so if I go to my scenes play, I've got to be able to, kind of declare an object here. Here's my private ocean. Now I need my private island. Well, nice to have a private island in real life, eh? Only Onassis could do it with Scorpios. He actually had an island called Scorpios that was used in the movie, the James Bond movie Goldfinger. Okay? Onassis, famous, shipping tycoon, Greek, right? That's how I know. I'm a Greek guy. Of course, I've got to know everything about all the Greek guys ever that were famous, right? If I don't, my dad and my mom would be really mad at me. Okay. So I've got this island. Here it is, ocean and island. And now I've got my ocean here, and now I'm going to add my island. Remember, my island, when I instantiate it, it's going to be set up off the screen by default at the beginning, right? So I'm going to say this that underscore island is equal to new objects.island. We've got a pattern, right? And this is very good. Island, right? And then this dot add child, this dot island underscore island. Now, one thing we're missing, we have to put a island.update. This dot, oops, blah, 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 FGG path. This dot underscore island dot update. We updated our ocean, updated our island. We're only doing one update. We're only updating the scene, right? In our game class, we're just updating the scene. In our scene, we're updating a bunch of objects. All right, that's what's happening here. Now, again, if you guys don't understand what I'm doing here, it's a cascade, right? My scene is the place where we're seeing all the changes happening, right? We're not touching our menu scene. Menu scene is still menu. Still looks like start. That's all it has, right? We're just messing with the scene, which is the play scene. Now, it says we've made 16 changes. Let's check it out and see if it's updated. So I'm going to save everything. I'm going to go back to my mail pilot and press start, and we should see an island coming down in random places. Let's keep looking, see if it kind of adheres to what I have to do, right? Oh, is that right? It's kind of right. I got to see it again. No, it's good. So far, it's good. Right, so it's going off screen. As soon as it goes off screen, it kind of resets. This is good. What about the other side? Right? I haven't seen a lot on this side. Oh, okay, there we go. Right? So this is wherever the island's going to appear randomly. Here's something that of a trick. Notice I didn't change my dx dy value on the island. The island and the ocean's dy value is identical. Why? The island can't move faster than the ocean. Ocean can't move slower than the island, right? Has to be kind of in sync. But the reason why we did a separate object is because we can test to see that my plane is going over my island as opposed to something else, right? I still haven't seen it go too far on the left, which is a problem. Here's something that you want to do. Huh? Did you get to left? Oh, there it is. It's getting closer. That's closer. But you want to keep running it over and over again. And sometimes you'll see a bug. Like what you want to do is test it enough times. Like this is how many resets do I have here? For the island, many, right? For the ocean, not so many. And the island and the ocean reset aren't synced, right? The island is only, I don't know, 65 characters. The ocean is 1,440 pixels, right? So the reset for the island and the ocean is going to happen out of sync with each other, right? Notice that the good thing is that the ocean or the island flows into the scene. Oh, there it is. Perfect. That's what I wanted. That was what I was looking to see, right? The island, that's bad. See that? The island went actually outside of bounds. My right bound is wrong. My right bound is wrong. I have to check what the right bound is. The right bound is wrong. I already found it. I saw the problem, right? So that's why I'm testing. I'm testing it for a while to make sure that it's correct, right? Let's refresh. How do I fix that? How do I check that? Well, it's a problem, right? And we leave it alone, but this is part of our troubleshooting. So until we haven't really fixed this yet, right? It's very, very minor. It's a minor bug, and we could specify it as a bug to fix later on and move on. That's another thing that people do. My island's kind of working. It's not 100%. I got a bit of a bug. Let's put it as an issue. Move on to the next one. Why? I'm going towards my minimum viable product, guys and girls. Worst case, I can always leave that bug and do it next time on version 2, right? But I've got my minimum viable product running. I've got everything I want, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I got it running. I'm going to put a bug. I know that that my ocean goes to the right outside of bounds. I got to fix it later. I'm not going to fix it now, right? It's a strategy so I can finish, right? Otherwise, you'll never finish, right? You can do this forever and ever, and you'll never finish, right? Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to add another issue, and now this one is a bug, right? So we're going to say label bug ocean island goes outside of bounds on the right side, right? So I have to beyond 600, 640 pixels, right? At the bug, it's going to go for milestone number 0.2 and submit new. I got to fix that in my second milestone. And if I look at my issues, I got one bug and a bunch of features and an enhancement, right? All right. But you know what? I've closed off. I think this is a great place to close off my island, because my island to the player points generator, that's there, right? This is my island, and I think we can close this feature off. But first, I got to make a commit to that effect. So I'm going to say this closes issue number 4 or number 3. That's what this is, right? So I'm going to go back to here. I got these 16 fixes. I'm going to go add them all into the staging area, and I'll say added island object. This fixes issue number, what did it say, 3? Thank you, number 3. Push. And when I do that, I go down here and I refresh. Okay, and this is my island here like this, and I'm going to close. That's it. So this is closed. Let's move on to the next one. Now it's 5:18, right? I think we've gone beyond 20 minutes outside of what I'd like to stop. Let's take a short break before we continue, right? Because, by the way, this is all working on 0.1, right? And it's different than master, right? You can see that, I can see that how it annotates everything nicely, right? So let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with build 0.1 of MailPilot.